All right, guys, I'm recording now.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
How are you, teacher?
Walaikum salam.
How are you? How's everyone? How are you, Zarin?
I'm good. I'm in Pakistan now.
Oh, you're in Pakistan. When are you?
Yes.
When are you coming back?
I'm going to USA on 20th June, and then I will come back from there.
Okay, you're going to Boston.
I'm going to Rhode Island this time because they are in Rhode Island now. Providence.
Oh, okay. They're living in some expensive parts of America.
Yeah. My son-in-law is working with the Brown University now.
Oh, okay. She's working for Brown. Great.
Yeah.
Great. So we miss you. I knew something was wrong.
Yeah, because I was here.
I knew something was wrong. The Riyadh is a little bit different. This is why now. I now understand why. Zarin is gone.
Yes. Yeah, I will join every session now, inshallah.
Sure.
Hi, Ray. Hi, everyone. Zara.
Hi.
Hi. Yes.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I will mute myself so we can listen.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. We're going to give another minute. We'll go another minute. Let everyone log on. Rose, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. I see you was in the desert last week.
Yeah. I left Riyadh.
And Yasmin, how are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. I'm getting used to this waiting room situation. All right, we'll take another minute and we're going to get started because I appreciate everyone's time. And I've asked some folks to come onto this call last minute, short notice. So I really want to appreciate their time and value their time. So we will start in 30 more seconds. All right, I think we should go ahead and get started. This is Yasmin. I think this is the fourth conversation that we've had on the book so far. So this is conversation number 4 concerning cultures of thinking, and we're using Ron Ritchhart's book, The 8 Forces of Cultures of Thinking, Transform Schools. I destroyed the title, but you guys know what the title is at this point. This week, we're talking about opportunities and routines. So last week, we all contributed, and even folks who weren't able to make the call, like Yasmin, she even contributed, and I read her her response, which was outstanding. And I think Renette and Shiny want to present their responses next week. But because we have some special guests in the session today, we're going to reserve that. What I do want to do is I want to take about 5 minutes and introduce some of the special guests that we have on our call tonight. And just for the special guests know, this is APEA. This is our APEA family, or some of our family members. And just like all family members, some of our members will be late. Sometimes I'm late to the meeting, to the family meeting. But APEA was started back in 2017, right, Rose? Well, 2017, I think. And the whole objective of APEA has always been to support teachers. Most of the teachers that are on the call currently teach in Saudi Arabia. Although we are all from all corners of the world, and Zoran just told us she's in Pakistan right now, and then she's going to go to America, and then hopefully back to Saudi, because Riyadh is not the same without Zoran. So, so I just want you to know that this is our APEA family, and we've been together for a while. Many of us have been together for a long time. So I want to introduce you to some of my other family members. So the other family members I'd like to introduce you to is some folks from Fort Hays State. And as you guys know, I'm a member of the Fort Hays family, in that I graduated from Fort Hays State with my master's degree. And I know at least some of the people on this call very, very well, because I've worked with them, and or I have been taught by them at various degrees. So I want to introduce first Cindy Elliott. Cindy Elliott is the Vice President for International Partnerships for Fort Hays State University. And Cindy, you want to say hello to everyone? And
I certainly do, Raynor. Thank you very much for asking us to join you. Hello, thank you for the waves. Thank you for the waves. Appreciate that. I hear the call to prayer in the background.
yes, it's the last call.
It must be sunset there. Is it sunset?
Well, it's the Easter prayer. It's the last prayer.
The last prayer, that last prayer. Well, it's comforting to hear that. I have been to Saudi Arabia 3 times, and hope that our COVID will pass at some point and I can return again. Raynor and I have been working together for quite some time. We have a robust program, including degree programs in advanced education. I think Raynor has been pleased with the masters that he got from Fort Hayes. We welcome him as a Tiger. And so we are here this evening, your time, to discuss two opportunities. One opportunity is a workshop specifically designed for teachers. And I'll put in the chat box what the topic may include. I've been working with Raynor and some of our faculty in our College of Education. So I'll put more information in the chat box. And secondly, is we are organizing some virtual summer camps for students as well as teachers. And Haley Williams from Global Partnerships is here with us today to explain more about the virtual summer camp. But let me first send you some information about the workshops and see if you have any questions. There, let me see if after you receive that in chat, if you have some questions. I'm here to answer those questions. The courses will be taught by Dr. Robert Moody, who is truly an expert on Google Classroom. Isn't he, Raynor? He really is. He's a consultant for Google in the United States. And also by Dr. Jerry Brooks, who is a specialist in differentiated learning and APA style. So we'll have two good faculty that you will have a chance to take this workshop.
Right, Cindy. You want to say something else?
No, well, you let me know if you want to ask questions of me, Robert, then I can attempt to answer those questions.
Well, if I can just introduce everyone quickly, but I think we do have one hand up. So Mr. Malik, I believe, has a question.
Yeah. Thank you for this introduction and this offer of this workshop. But could you please explain what time of the day this workshop will be, so that will be easy for us to plan?
Mr. Malik, thank you very much for that good question. Actually, to be truthful, the faculty and Raynor have not chosen the time. If I can get some of your feedback, maybe we should do a questionnaire, Raynor, about how many would be interested in the workshop and what time you might propose. Our faculty are very flexible in a time that's convenient and for you. So you might give us some feedback on that. Would you rather have evening time in Saudi or morning time? Raynor told me it's kind of an evening culture in the kingdom. So maybe you wanted to have an evening class.
Like according to the teaching schedule that I have these days, evening would be suitable for me. But is it going to be synchronous or asynchronous?
Malik, thanks for that question. And thank you for knowing the definitions of synchronous and asynchronous. These will be synchronous classes. We think it's important for our faculty to see you and for you to see our faculty. There will probably be some homework assignments, like maybe writing a paper using the APA style, American Psychological Association style. We understand that that's something that you maybe are not as familiar with. But then primarily, this is a chance for you to be exposed to a graduate level course work to build your confidence so that hopefully you will want to consider applying to Fort Hays State University for a master's degree. That's really the intention.
Right, right. So I would be interested in knowing more details, like are these 3 days going to be like consecutive 3 days, or is there going to be some gap between these 3 days of these workshops? And like, you know, it will all help in making up a mind.
Yeah, Mr. Malik, I'm going to send out, we haven't figured everything out, the logistics. So as soon as
Okay.
we figure the logistics out, and a part of that will be me asking you guys what best suits you. So I'll send out a survey shortly. And
Right. That would be great. That would be great.
And that's exactly right, Milik. We want to make this convenient for you. So as soon as we find out who is interested, then Rainer will talk with you. Maybe you want to have 3 consecutive days, or maybe you would rather have it over a 3-week period.
Right.
Our faculty are very flexible to make this valuable experience for you. So if
I'm glad to hear that.
you want to put in the WeChat that if you're interested, then Rainer will be able to do that follow-up for us.
Sure.
Now that I do want to say, the one thing I do know is that we need at least 40 participants, participants in order to make this work, because we have to make it a part of everyone's, we have to appreciate everyone's time and make it valuable for everyone. And everyone.
Well, actually, Rainer, it's 30. We need a minimum of 30, but we certainly would love to have 40 too.
Well, to be honest with you, I said I know it was 30. I was trying to say 40 though.
Okay. Good.
Okay, we need 30.
Well, anyway, the point is we do have to have a minimum of 30, but Rainer and I are hoping for 40 or more. And if we have a large number, we may split the workshop into 2 different times. So,
Absolutely.
this is our first time to try this. If it works well this summer, then we will do more workshops for teachers in the future.
Okay, so I will most definitely reach out to you guys in the next couple of days to figure out the logistics and what you guys' preferences are. Cindy, because I want to make sure that we get through these chapters of this book, so I want to kind of say hello to everyone. Haley.
Yeah, let me just introduce to the teachers. Haley Williams will be organizing virtual summer camps with students across the globe in China, Bahamas, Cameroon, Turkey, and hopefully Saudi Arabia and other places. And so we're also opening the virtual summer camps for teachers as well. That's why we asked Haley to join us now. So I'll let Haley explain what we're going to do. Thanks, Haley.
You're welcome. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Ray, for the invitation to be here with the APA family today. It's a real honor to meet you all. As Cindy mentioned, we are doing virtual summer camps, and this is actually our 2nd year doing these camps virtually. We used to host the camps on the actual campus, but of course, due to COVID, we haven't been able to do that. So we have a 1-year experience of doing these virtual experiences for students. So I've had a meeting with Ray, and we began discussing what would be relevant content for the students in Saudi Arabia specifically. And we're excited to, I have some promotional material actually ready to go to Ray today to begin to interact and recruit students to participate. We've been extremely grateful to the leadership at Fort Hays for allowing us to offer these camps to students at no cost. So the camps are free to the students. And our main objective is, of course, we would love to see our campus filled with students from Saudi Arabia. So we'd love to recruit students, but we also hope that we can give the students some tools to be successful in the classroom, in American classroom, if they chose to study abroad in the States, and also expose them to just life on an American campus. So talking about residential life and living and learning in America, and specifically at Fort Hays. So that's just a brief introduction to what our summer camps will look like. we have a lot of different activities and things planned. And so we're really excited to interact with students from Saudi Arabia this summer. So thank you, Ray.
And I want to point out that any of your young folks that are about to transition to university college, and this will be a great opportunity for them to get a glimpse, an insight into how American universities operate and what the expectations are of American universities. So if you have, I would say 10th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders, and recent high school graduates, please enroll them into this program. I can testify, if you will, for lack of a better term, of the value that Fort Hays State's Fort Hays offers its students. Next, is that what you have, Haley? Is that all?
That was all, but I'm happy to take questions if anybody wants to put something in the chat. So thank you.
Let me mention that the virtual summer camps will have some pre-prepared discussions about Hayes, about Fort Hays State University, about American higher education. And it will also, Haley is organizing what we call meetups, where the students from all over the world will be able to connect in small breakup rooms so that they can explain their culture and get to practice their English and get to know one another. So we will have some design for the students to be able to talk about their life in Saudi Arabia with students from Cameroon, Bahamas, China, Turkey, other places.
Great. Great. So I'll send that information out to you guys shortly. Next person I want to introduce is Dr. Rob Scott. Now, I've worked with Dr. Scott here in Saudi Arabia, and Dr. Scott and I know share a friend, and so I invited Dr. Scott to say hello, because Dr. Scott is his expertise is in special ed and I believe reading also, if my memory is correct. So Dr. Scott, you want to say hello to the APEA family?
Hi, APEA family, and a special greeting to Ray. And I trust everything's good there. I feel like Ray is a person you can really count on. I count on him because I know he can drive a van in Riyadh traffic. So he's number one on my trusted friends. And it's so neat to see and hear what you're doing. And then Cindy Elliott is also number one. I don't know how two people could be number one on my trusted friends, but she has been a friend and support since my family and I arrived here in Hayes in 2002. And I also worked for Cindy's father when I was at Japan many years ago. He was on the board of trustees that came to inspect a school I was working for in Japan. So you're with some great people here, and I don't know what my area of expertise is, but a lot of it has to do, I think, with cross-cultural and with linguistics and with ESL, and then of course I put something in the chat just to make it easier, because otherwise you don't want to get me talking. Ray would really regret having invited me if I could continue to talk.
No, well, I definitely want you to engage us in the routines and opportunities conversation, if you will, cultural thing.
Looking forward, and that's what I came for. And thanks. It's really nice to see and meet everybody. Yeah.
And Rob, it's wonderful to see you. I missed you during this COVID time. It's wonderful to see you. And I didn't even know you were there till Rainer introduced you. So,
Cindy's a real spark plug. She's a spark plug at Fort Hays, and I'm so happy that you're involved. You all are involved with her and with Haley and with others, the others that you mentioned, some of those others that you mentioned in the College of Education. I'm very familiar with. I've worked up and down the halls with them. Uh, it's a wonderful relationship you have there. I'm gonna.
We'll see you at the welcome back picnic maybe next week.
Okay. Sounds good. If there's food involved, I often will try to make those occasions. Yeah. Thank you.
And I
Rainer,
just
thanks
want
for the invitation.
no problem. I just want to remind everyone that it would be very mean and unthoughtful of me to not mention Dr. Anderson, Gary Anderson, who really introduced me to CoT, Cultures of Thinking, way back in 2017. And that book really reshaped my thinking, and it also is a part of a piece of the dissertation, of my dissertation topic. So so I know Dr. Anderson is not here, but I know he's here in spirit. So Dr. Anderson, if your ears are ringing, thank you. Thank you. So let's jump into this conversation about cultures of thinking. And so I invited someone who's another family member of mine, someone who's dear to my heart, my experience. And in many ways, she's the reason why I became an educator. And it probably 75% of the reason why I became an educator. And she helped launch me into this path of teaching and learning. And I want to introduce you to someone I've known for a very long time now. And again, very important and central in my life. And that's Dr. Shante Booker, and she will be our guest speaker today to talk to you about opportunities and routines. Dr. Booker is a educator for over 20 years. She has primarily worked in the Baltimore City Public Schools, Baltimore County Schools, and she does a lot of consultancy work in relation to teaching and learning and school support. So I thought she would be an excellent person to kind of lead the conversation in this idea of routines and opportunities. Dr. Booker.
Greetings and thank you for the introduction, Ray. It's a pleasure to be joining everyone today, and it's really exciting to hear the conversations and also to get acquainted with Fort Hays University and to hear the awesome things that are taking place there. And so I'm thankful for the opportunity to join you all tonight. So I am Shante Booker, and I'm currently finishing out my last year as principal in Baltimore City, transitioning to full consultancy work with a new company called Equitable Solutions Consulting Group. And we are primarily focusing on equity in education and what that looks like, what it is and what it isn't. And looking at equity from a school point of equity with people, programs and resources and how they work together, as well as doing some principal coaching and supporting educators. Today, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about routines and procedures as it pertains to classroom instruction and just how we operate. And so I understand we're working on culture of thinking. And so when I started kind of just brainstorming what came to mind at the top of my head for culture of thinking, outside of some of the principles in the book, I started thinking about things like frame of reference and how our thinking is developed from the beginning, and kind of thinking about our beliefs and our values and our family structures and how that all formulates and helps us become the person we are now, and how we think and how we process things and process thoughts. And then the next thing that came to mind is about our experiences, our past experiences, and whether they were successful experiences or hurts. So we learn a lot, and that also helps to shape our thought process and how we process things. And then thinking about our knowledge, our education, Everything that we learn is not in college or school. We learn a lot of things along the way, just in our experiences and our exposure. And so when we kind of tie all of those things together, it kind of also brings together our whole culture of thinking and how that helps form us as educators. Because whether we think about it or not, all of our past experiences and frames of references show up with us to school every day. And whether we're teaching at a college level or at the school level, and helps determine what kind of educator we're going to be and how we see our students and how we serve them. And so we know that research tells us that, it takes about 21 to 30 days of something consistently taking place of a routine to become a habit. And so when we think about school age, and I didn't ask what grade level or what level that our teachers are working with, Ray. I'm not sure what our audience is, college, school based.
Most, as I understand it, mostly everyone is K to 12. I think most of the teachers here are mainly K to 6. We might have some high school teachers, but most are primary and middle school.
Okay, great. Thank you. So when we think about routines, and we're thinking about first from our student lens, we know that something has to be consistently modeled and it needs to take place on a regular basis, and for our students to kind of become a habit. When we think about culture and climate, and we set expectations and classroom rules, and we think about what our students are going to do, we know that, just that one day we let something slide, or we don't think about it, or we change the routine, then our students begin to get off course. So ideally, we want to practice and model the same thing on a consistent basis, and enforce the same rules, same consequences, same incentives to make sure that things stay aligned in order for us to see a productive and successful rate of routine with our students. What that looks like, if we're being very successful, ultimately at a certain point in our school year, our students should be able to self-operate. Evidence of that would be seeing kids coming into a classroom. They know what to do. They know where to put their papers, where to pick up their books. They know, where to get started with their warm-up activity. Or even if we're virtual, our students know when they log into, online instruction, that they should go here, go to the Google Classroom and look for the warm-up assignments. So they become familiar with what their routines are, and they're able to implement those routines without a lot of teacher prompting, right? So ultimately, if we are, teaching and modeling and inspecting our routines, our students should be able to actually carry them out in our absence, or they will get their routine and begin to do them on their own. So that's what we think about in terms of student routines. Then when we talk about teacher routines and teacher practice, teachers also have routines, and educators, because you got to get into a good flow for yourself to make sure that your time management as well. And so your routine might consist of, what time am I doing my lesson plans? And we also know there's a difference between lesson planning and preparation, right? So when am I planning, and then when am I preparing for the lesson? When am I pulling the materials together and gathering all of those kind of things? What does it look like? Do I set my classroom up before I leave? Do I have to set up a Google Classroom and a Zoom room? So depending on whether you're virtual or if you're back in full time, there are some routines that we have to also make sure as educators that we are also implementing. And then that makes our day go smooth. If we know, okay, every day I get up, first thing I do when I get to my classroom or I get online, I take attendance. And while my students are doing their warm up, I check the homework. And while they're doing this, I do that. When we have smooth routines, they become kind of secondhand. You don't have to really write them down. Kind of goes hand in hand. And so all of us, even in our personal life, we have some routines that we follow when we want to, ensure that things go orderly, and we want to be able to use our time management as effective as possible. One of the things that I think about from a principal lens with the routines and the culture and climate component, often we will set expectations, and we'll have a class list, our rules and procedures, and we'll tell students, okay, make sure, be kind to others, be considerate. And we talk about what we should do, but I think it's also important that we model and demonstrate for our students what it looks like and what it isn't, right? And so one of the things that we do at my school, which is New Era Academy, we decided to create some videos. So we had decided, an example would be, we had cafeteria behavior. We had some protocol for what's acceptable in the cafeteria. And so what we did was we created a video of what it looks like, right? So how to line up appropriately, how to be kind to one another, how to accept your tray, what the cleanup procedures look like. But we also did a video of what it didn't look like. So we made sure that we could actually visualize for our students. No shoving, no pushing, no dirty tables. So we want to make sure, you know, that when we're giving out rules and procedures and expectations, that part of the modeling is this is what it is and this is what it is not. So again, all of that comes back to kind of when we tie that back to the culture of thinking, we know that as educators, we're coming with one frame of reference. I often refer back to the culture of poverty work with Ruby Payne, just looking at the different classes and levels of students and the hidden languages between the different classes. And we know that everybody perceives education differently. You know, how we value education, how we value rules and different things. And so it's very important that the main thing with this all is about relationship building. And so, you know, teachers, educators, we all have to make sure that we're building meaningful and strong relationships with our students. That way we kind of can, you know, tell how our students are doing every day. We can tell if they're off, if something's not right about them that particular day. We develop these strong relationships where our students trust us. And what I've come to learn over the last 20 years of working in education, students respond because it's you, right? And so when you have a strong relationship, students don't want to let you down. They want to, you know, please you. They want to stay in, you know, in the positive light for their teacher or their principal or the counselor. And so developing that meaningful relationship goes a long way when you're talking about how we implement these routines and what students respond and what students do not. And so I'll stop right there, Ray, to see if there are any questions. And then I'll finish up in just a moment.
If I can, Dr. Booker, I would like to, number one, as you ask, field any questions. Does anyone have any questions in regards to anything that Dr. Booker covered? Everyone's intently taking notes. Now I would like to ask Dr. Scott. I was going to ask you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to fill you in. Do you would you like to add on to anything that Dr. Booker said?
No, I am so I'm just in awe. I think like everybody here listening, and it makes a lot of sense the way you describe that, and I really appreciate getting a chance to hear your insights from experience. The only question I was thinking of asking was whether there is a value in what the timing and what the considerations would be for introducing changes in a routine, if in a classroom routine. If you could say something to that, because I can tell that you will have a lot to say about that will be very useful. I mean, myself, all that I'm learning here today, I'd like to learn a little something about that. Is my question clear?
Yes, thank you. And so part of what we do, we know that we often will, ideally, we like to start off with new routines in the beginning of a school year. But as educators, we are constantly assessing and evaluating the effectiveness of what it is that we plan. And sometimes we have to go back to the drawing board. So it is okay to kind of regroup and go back and start over if we see or we have evidence that what it is that we've been trying to get our students to do or school-wide procedure has not, really gained us any kind of success, that we start over. Sometimes that may be a small tweak, right? We may have to adjust a few things. Sometimes it's starting over from the beginning if we see that there is completely no buy-in. But in general, when we understand the change theory, we know that everybody doesn't change at the same time, right? So we introduce this new thing, and so we might get 10% of our teachers that's, they want it right away. Others, they need to see a little evidence first. Others come along as you begin to formulate. So a lot of research around the change process and change theory. But again, you know, there's no harm in starting. If you get halfway in the year and you notice that the rules that we started with, or the social contract, or any of those things are not being enforced appropriately at that time, then yes, you will have to reassess, and you will have to see what part is working and what part is not. And if it's, you know, completely not working, occasionally you do have to scrap the whole thing and look for some new evidence-based strategies that have been proven to be successful. Otherwise, then, you know, you just tweak it. And I'll give you an example of what that looks like. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with like PBIS and the incentives model. We use a tier 2 tracker at my school where
Dr. Booker,
yes.
can you explain briefly PBIS for these guys?
Sure. So PBIS is a positive behavior intervention system that we use here in the United States. Basically what it is a school-wide incentive program where a school might say, you know, my monthly incentive is for every student who, you know, has perfect attendance, you're going to get 10 Ram bucks, you know, whatever your school mascot is. And then students can use those bucks to purchase things. Or they may say, if everyone who has, you know, if you've only missed 2 days of school, you're entitled to come to a, you know, basketball game at the gym. So the school decides the incentives for this school-wide component. But you look for the problem based on the data. So let's say a school wears uniform and you notice kids are not wearing it, then you want to create an incentive around whatever your problem is. So these aren't just kind of generalized incentives. If attendance is low, then your incentive for that month may be around attendance. If it is, you know, student engagement or whatever. So you want to look for something that actually has some evidence and some data behind it, because ultimately you want this incentive to change whatever this behavior is that, you know, is not awarding you success. You're muted, Ray.
I have a question that deals with what you just said, but I want to yield to Yasmin for a second, because Yasmin just put a comment in. I think it's important.
Thanks. I didn't want to take any time away from the conversation. That's why I just placed it in the chat. But when it comes to routines, like Dr. Booker was saying, sometimes they just don't work. And I always tell my students, it's okay to make a mistake, because that's how we learn. And so I tell the students, hey, I thought this was going to be a great idea, but it is not working. And I get feedback from them to see what can we do to make this better. And so I don't just stop abruptly and just change the routine. I let them know there's going to be a change. This is why. What do you think we could do to make it better?
So I'm sorry.
Student voice is very important. And so, you know, fair process and student voice, giving students an opportunity to be heard and help to, one of the things that we do, we call it a social contract. So our rules and classroom procedures are made by the whole class, right? It's not where we go in the first day and we put up our 5 rules and we say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We talk about, how do I want to be treated in the class? How do you think a teacher wants to be treated? And we come up with this student social contract, and we cover it every day. But again, one of the things that I recommend also is giving your students a survey around incentives. Often as adults, we may think students want certain things, but often our thought is way off. So, you know, ask your students, what kind of things do you like? What would you like to get as an incentive? And it don't always have to be you know, something that is costly. Sometimes it's just some free time. It's time to listen to my music. It's time to watch something or see a movie. So as students, about, you know, let them have some voice in what they see as a positive incentive and what they would buy into, but also let them help create the norms and the class rules.
So I have a question for either you, Dr. Booker, or all three of you guys, Yasmin or Dr. Scott, can respond to this question. And it's a 2-part question. Number 1, can routines be differentiated? And number 2, how important is the learner profile as it relates to building a routine? Dr. Booker, you want to start first, or?
Sure. Absolutely, routines have to be differentiated. I know even here in America, my school is about 40% English language learners. So every student is coming from all different countries from around the globe. And so again, when we start thinking about like cultures of thinking, cultures of poverty, what makes sense to one group necessarily doesn't resonate with the other. So yeah, sometimes the routines do have to be differentiated based on the population that we're serving. But as educators, we have to know our clientele and our population. We have to know, different things. And I'm sure many of you educators on this line can attest to this when you're teaching different cultures and you're from different places. Language barriers can be challenging. Sometimes certain words mean certain things to certain people. Sometimes what we think might be an incentive could be offensive to others, or one routine. Some people will say that's against my religion, or I can't do this, or X, Y, and Z. So there has to be a little bit of flexibility in the routine. So that's all about knowing your student, knowing your clientele. Sometimes there's a need for it. Other times it's a strict, rigid, this is what the routine is. But yes, when you have a diverse population, there has to be a little bit of flexibility to accommodate all of your students.
And I don't know, I just say something real quickly here, and that is talking from the student's point of view, and things like self-efficacy that Bandura speaks about, which is so important to success and progress. But also John Dewey said that students need successful experiences of hitting a target, and we could say achieving goals and objectives on our, having that experience gives them the ability to, it gives them a kind of self-confidence, this self-efficacy, which is a belief that what you're setting out to do that might be different or challenging or stretch you in a certain way, that a sense that you are going to be able to succeed because you've had those experiences before. But there's Bandura, when I looked at this, I've looked at this a little bit, and Bandura said, if efficacy beliefs always reflected only what people can do routinely, they would rarely fail, but they would not set aspirations beyond their immediate reach, nor mount the extra effort needed to surpass their ordinary preferences. And I won't belabor that point, but I think that that's kind of what I'm speaking about when I'm talking about. And then there are so many people. Well, I've met now today Shante Booker and Yasmin and all of you that have insights to add to this. You know that Zaretta Hammond has a lot to say that's very useful on this from the student perspective, on changing and developing, and then we could look at maybe what did people come up with in the pandemic situation, because a lot of routines had to be changed. So what was essential that be kept in a certain way, but to continue pushing yourself. Oh, and the thing I wanted to get at is just what a few years ago, it was bugging me a little bit. It was on my mind a lot, but it's so important I think as teachers, and this, I think Yasmin, I think you mentioned this, and I believe in Shanti Booker's comments also, it came out. But as teachers, honesty is important. We fail. And for students to see a teacher regroup, lift themselves up, learn from something, explain it like you were talking about, the why we're shifting now and doing things a different way, but to take on some of that responsibility that yes, teachers make mistakes, and yes, we learn, we fail, And if we can be honest and recognize it and have a way, an effective way of sharing that with our students, it may be something that clicks for the student even years later, that when they find themselves in a situation, oh, I've seen this. Teachers, successful teachers fail sometimes. It's really, I think, important for us to have that kind of honesty, and I'm not sure it's always there. Thank you.
So Dr. Scott, you and Dr. Booker mentioned this too in her conversation, and I was going to ask her this question. And so you're not belabor. You mentioned that you didn't want to belabor the point, but I think the point needs to be belabored, because as we engage this book, one of the things that I've noticed is that all the forces are interconnected, meaning you just talked about modeling and opportunities. That's what I heard. The opportunities to get out of that we got, or that we should have gotten or should be getting from the COVID pandemic. And then, so that's two. And then I also heard time. Dr. Booker talked a lot about time, which is another element of the culture of thinking. So I think we need, because today's discussion should be about routines, and maybe we should have separated them too, because we can, as you can see, we can spend a lot of time on routines. But for me, when we're talking about teaching and learning, it's about efficiency, because we don't have a lot of time. So routines help us to become efficient in our time. And that should be based on the opportunities that we can get out of that time through proper modeling. So I don't know who wants to, expand on that more. Dr. Booker, you want to talk about this idea of time and routines and opportunities and how they're interconnected, and modeling, and the idea that teachers have to, as Dr. Scott said, basically be vulnerable and say, hey, look, I messed up. And, what do you guys think about that? Is that something, because I've heard teachers in this group suggest that may not be practical. What say you, Dr. Booker?
Thank you. And I really appreciate your comments, Dr. Scott, about your researchers and philosophers. Again, I want to go back to something I mentioned before. The main thing here is about building healthy, meaningful relationships, right? Teacher to student relationships. And as Dr. Scott said, a little bit of vulnerability. We have to have opportunities for our students to get to know us a little bit. One of the things that I often try to get my staff to do is I try to ask everybody to either hit some kind of club or sport or something outside of just their teaching, so that students can get to see you in a different way. So often students just see us as the person giving us the grade or the evaluator, that kind of thing. But when you're the coach or you're the art club person, or you're the debate coach or something like that, students get to connect to us in a different manner. But those relationships are really, really important. And let's say, like, for many of us who may be going to school, often you may talk about, oh, I know you have homework, but I have a paper tonight also, right? It's the small things. What'd you do this weekend? Well, I was typing all weekend, or I had to read, I was on calls last night. So as students get to hear you being real about your challenge, I know you have homework, but trust me, I'll be doing mine as well. Just kind of giving a different insight to you, and sharing, like, your strengths. Now, I mean, of course, we're not talking about like, oh man, I had an argument with my husband or wife last night, but in terms of just the educational component, being able to just say, nope, I had to take that class twice. If you don't pay attention, I don't want that to happen to you, but giving some real components. That allows us, those relationships, and when we talking about what that gives us an opportunity to do, it gives us an opportunity to kind of understand the root of the problems and the trauma that our students may have, right? And so you may be familiar with what we call the ACEs, or adverse childhood effects. The more we're talking with our students and they begin to trust us, when they do have problems, they're more likely to share, or if something has happened to them or they're experiencing something, they're going to come to, Mr. Roberts, because, I know if I tell him, he's not going to blast it and make me embarrassed. He's going to help me with the problem. I can go to my counselor but if a kid doesn't have a connection, the likelihood of them being able to share with you or, indulge certain personal things, is going to not be so great. And so you'll have more kids kind of suffering in silence, or that may show up as a behavior problem, or show up as, some other thing that we don't want to see. So again, it has to start with that relationship building. We're talking about healthy relationships, right? So not inappropriate kind of conversations, but more like restorative practices, those proactive questions and proactive conversations that we can have with students to just learn more about them in ways that we can connect.
So I have so many questions, but I don't want to hog. So okay, I'm not gonna hog this show here. So family member Rose, you had a question. Why don't you go and shoot your question off, Rose? Rose.
Okay, I typed wrongly, typo. Sorry about that. And thank you very much, Dr. Booker. I appreciate it. And I didn't know that it takes 21 days for routine to sink in. Now I have knowledge. Thank you for that. So my question is about PBIS. Does it affect other students? Because I've tried it, and I find out like some students get really demoralized after giving someone else an incentive. So what do you do?
So often PBIS is normally a school-wide incentive program. So you may have an umbrella. You may have your school-wide PBIS, and then you may also have some teacher classroom incentives. I mean, just being honest, sometimes we see that the same kids or the good kids always meet the incentive. So we have to be very strategic in how to get the kids who would normally not meet it to want to actually join it. Because often, the kids will come to school every day, great behavior every day. We're really working to get that lower level group of kids who normally never can meet the incentive. And so we want to be very strategic. And that's why the survey comes into play. If we find out what that particular kid or those few kids that we're having these struggles with, what they like, then we can kind of center our incentive around what speaks to them, right? They always say, like, even with a punishment, it's only effective if it, means something to a kid. You take a cell phone away from a kid who's really not into technology, it's like, okay, I'll just watch TV. Where another kid who's a, cell phone all day, this is traumatizing, they may not make it through the night. So you have to really kind of, as you get to know your students, you find like what makes them tick. And, you craft your incentive around something that you think will be useful for that particular kid to solve that problem.
Yeah, but sometimes it brings problems even to parents, because this number one student or the student who's doing properly keeps the standard. And if you keep going and going and going, it brings really like crash. Even parents come in and say, what did you do? Why only one person, or why only this? And so it's like, I always reward every person something, little bit. And
that's a good idea. Sometimes we have something we find, Ray talked about differentiating the routines or the incentives. Sometimes we have something that is, reasonable for everybody to meet. So there may be different levels. You may have a tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. And so tier 1, everybody can get, right? Hey, you were here, you showed up, and, just kind of basic in general. That way, no one's left out. And that's just kind of a struggle. We're in that society now. Even if you play on a team, you play baseball, everybody gets a trophy, just because you were on the team. So that's one of the things we have to kind of work with. But yep, just having that generalized overarching kind of incentive that everybody can make. And maybe you don't necessarily always have to advertise the others. If we know the same kids are going to get it, we really want to make the incentive geared towards the lower level students, because we already know, Sally and Johnny are going to, get it. They are always my A students, but we want to gear the incentive crafted around those students who normally wouldn't. So it would be something reasonable for them.
Excellent question.
Thank you.
Excellent questions. Aziza, you had a comment you want to make?
Yeah, you asked a question about how does routine help learning profile. for me, if we explain as everyone put it out there that a routine takes about 21 days. So if we assess the student through the routine itself, it kind of enhance and it's kind of a fair assessment because we would see the what student lack and we could kind of give them feedback towards it, and then they would do better in the second time they do the same routine, and so on. So that's what was my point at that having a routine in class will actually benefit the student, and it will make it clear to give a clear feedback and a fair feedback to a student. So it enhances the individual learning as well.
Aziza, I think that's a great observation. And I think it opens up a can of worms, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
now we're back. Now we have to ask, should the routine be based on the profile? Meaning we create routines that match profiles, or should we already have a routine that we're trying to force students to or program students into? That's a very, and I don't know if we can answer that question. What do you say about Dr. Booker? Should we cater customized routines, or should we have routines that we want and I don't want to use the word force, but I guess it's force or program or condition students to follow? What do you think about that?
That's a tough question. It's kind of a 50-50, right? Depending on, that culture of thinking and which lens you're looking at it from. That's going to depend on your school and your class and your setting. There are some schools, private schools, and, certain types of schools where they have a pretty good culture. And so, these are the routines. We're stickler for it. And, we all know that students like structure, by the way, as much as they may, sometimes not go, hand in hand. Students like structure and they need it. And in some cases, there has to just be structure. If we're in a school or a classroom where it's just chaotic and we're trying to, regain control of the classroom and get things put into place, or we're new to a component, I think having some set routines and procedures already established that we conquer first is a great way to go. But if we have met that expectation and there's great relationships building, then I think then we can customize them based on the student, based on the need at the time. But when you're walking into a new situation, your new principal going into a school, you're gonna have to have some set routines. This is the way that we do it here. This is my classroom. This is how I expect things to happen. But as you get to learn your students and your students learn you, the students test boundaries, right? There's going to be some boundary testing back and forth. So as students get to see like what's too far, what can I do? And you kind of build that relationship and that classroom culture, then you can get around to the other side of making the adjustments. But when you're coming in new, or you're a new teacher or a new school, or it's a new school year, as we begin to bring students back to in-person learning, and kids have been out of school for a year and a half, there's going to have to be some routine structures in place, right? Because kids have been, all over the place and a little bit of everything. So this is not going to be the time to get happy. Let's see what, Johnny wants to do when he gets back. But once we establish a tight knit community, I think we can then make some adjustments.
Ray, could I just say something about reinforcement, differentiated reinforcement, and
Sure.
That would just be the idea. That I think it was really interesting what was brought up about some students getting reinforced and others not getting reinforced, or perhaps the targets being being too low for some students or others. But I think that as you get to know through those relationships with students, there are going to be sometimes when when a student who, let's say, is getting the main things, but you expect actually a little something more from that student, and so it takes the incentives and the reinforcement is in another aspect. Or let's just say different students have different arrays of strengths and weaknesses, even within the same lesson, within the same subject area. And then finally, though, when you're talking about a student who might be, I think I know Ray, you and another friend of ours, Dave, have talked about, and I'm really interested in also how you, something that might seem like is not hitting the target from a student, how you can reinforce what aspect of that actually does move towards the target. And so the reinforcement of of uh, any of an indication of understanding or progress towards the target. And so for each student, I think that's going to be a little different. At my retirement dinner, a bunch of people were there, but I got to invite some people. I invited my 5th grade wrestling coach, and he's about 80 years old now. And he came over from a nearby town where I grew up. And it's always so good to see him. And he saw me get totally demolished in a wrestling match once. He happened to be there, and I hadn't seen him for a while. He saw this match where I got flipped on my back so many times. I think I gave up in the second period. I have to admit, after the points go past 20 or something, it's hopeless. And but each time I was put on my back, I bridged, and he had taught us, bridging. So he had just seen me get whipped. I stepped off the mat. There was Mr. Wolf, and his only thing to say to me after that was, "Where did you learn to bridge like that?" He picked out the only thing I did well, and he built on it. I think that's a teacher in many ways. I'll let that go. Sorry about that personal thing. Yeah.
I think that's what counts, noticing errors. We talk about that a lot, this idea of noticing errors. And I think that's a culture of thinking routine. And I think that's a routine that many of us as educators need to get in the habit of noticing, of being able to, as Coach Wolf did, illuminate and identify what went right instead of what went wrong. So stay with us, Dr. Rob, because I think this is for you. Farah, you said that you think routines work well for learners at the K-12 level, but university learners need or want more freedom. Do you want to, because you teach on the university level, Farah, you want to expound on that?
Hello, everyone. Hi, Ray. How are you doing?
I'm very well.
What I mean here is that bringing students into routine at university level, I feel that my learners here at university level, they lack motivation. Like at times it is very difficult to motivate them. And during this online teaching, it was really a challenge. Like, I think if you want to bring students in routine, you need to have a kind of a reward, like Miss Booker was saying that there must be a reward, which, like, there should be some kind of a motivation to bring students in a routine, or to engage them in procedures. And I feel because my students are all girls, I feel there is a lack of motivation to, get them into routines.
Have you identified any opportunities you can take advantage of to do it better next time, to help students out with that?
Yes, we tried with the asking them to present themselves on individual level or that, but I think that was there when the classes were offline also. In online, because they were not contacting each other, so that really demotivated them. I think this online learning for them was really very stressful. But inshallah, next semester when we'll get offline classes, I'll definitely try something. We'll see, because we are going under a change here in curriculum also. So there are many things in the pipeline, so we'll have to work accordingly.
Dr. Scott, do you want to, since you teach on the university level, do you want to talk about motivation and routines?
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
oh, you go ahead. I'll just say that I'm not. I don't think I'm very good at it yet, but I learn and I reflect, and I feel like universal design for learning is very helpful in this way. The key is having multiple formats or multiple ways of representing knowledge, multiple ways for students to with who have different abilities or different interests to understand and see knowledge represented and presented, and then multiple formats for engaging students. So we've got to have that relationship that Shante Booker has talked about. We have to have enough of a relationship that we know where students' interests are, and key into those. I think that's going to be big for motivation, and that's going to be different for different students. And then multiple formats of assessment or ways for students to express that they've learned. You know, are they going to make a speech to the class? Well, maybe they're not that comfortable making a speech. Maybe could they make a project with their hands? Are they more, taking into account different ways that students can show that they've understood and that they've accomplished the goals and objectives. So I think UDL is a big part of differentiating routines.
Can you just really quickly, can you expound on what UDL is real quick?
Universal Design for Learning, and it's described by online in some place. If you just put UDL, you'll even find some places that think they invented UDL. They'll claim to almost have a trademark on it, but it's a concept. It's bigger than just a trademark. But there are some great places that map it out really well. CAST, it comes to mind, CAST. They describe it really well. But that's what it is. And like I said, it's 3 principles: multiple formats of representation, multiple formats of engagement, and multiple formats of assessment or expression. And so that multiple formats is the whole key. Different ways that different students can get at the information, can understand, can be engaged, and also different ways for them to express what they've learned. Thank you. Okay, Ray, your mic's off. I'll turn mine off.
I'm sorry. We're going to wrap it up in the next couple of minutes, but Mr. Malik, you have a question?
It's not a question. Thank you for giving me a chance to explain myself. It's not a question. It's actually a kind of comment about motivation in online classes, and then motivation even following the routines in an online class. At university level, the question of motivation is actually related to students' choice, their choice of freedom. In this situation of online teaching and learning, they are not by choice in an online course. They're actually forced into that. Like at university level, a student makes a kind of conscious decision of attending an online course. But here, what we are doing, or the circumstances have actually forced all of us to be online there. So we can't blame students for that. Number one. Number two, in many cases, it's actually the curriculum which actually puts us into a situation where we have to follow a kind of routine. For example, talking about myself, I'm teaching technical English. So it's a project-based course. There are 3 projects. So the whole semester is divided accordingly into 3 parts where students have to work week by week on 3 different projects. So, and the basic level of motivation in an online university level course for university level students is actually grades, to be honest. They want grades. They want, they are worried about their GPA. They are worried about their overall performance and overall grades and all that. So it's at university level, it's a different kind of setting. It's a different kind of environment. It's a different kind of teaching and learning experience. So that's all from me. Yeah.
I think you tapped into basically what my research is about, and this idea that in many cases, the online experience should be an experience of choice. So when you force folks to go online, you kind of you already have done it wrong. And I don't know if everyone else gets that, but I get it 100%. And you have to really dive into the literature to really understand what we're talking about here. The online experience should be an experience of choice. And because really what you really looking to get is self-regulation, self-determination, and self-efficacy. And so a certain type of person needs to engage online. This is why older or non-traditional students tend to do very well online, because they kind of have things figured out. They are already regulated. They know that it's more than grades. They're motivated. And if you take a 18-year-old who not quite sure about things, and then you take a 12-year-old who's definitely not sure about anything, it becomes very messy. It becomes extremely messy. So but that's another conversation, and I would love to have that conversation with you, Mr. Malik, but that's that's a totally different conversation. Farah, I want to give you a minute to retort, because I know you had something to say, Farah.
I think during these online classes, the part which was the worst for students for motivation was we taught them online throughout the semester, but when it was evaluation time for the online techniques, teaching the offline curriculum, teaching them online, and then evaluating and calling them for exams offline, that was a very big problem. I don't know what happened in other universities, but at our place, we taught them online, and on the same curriculum, which was based on offline teaching, we took the exams offline. So there was not, kind of a balance between the kind of examinations we took and the classes we gave them. I think that was a very big part, that played a very big part in demotivating the students during all these 3, like 1.5 years. And I've attended so many webinars in the past 1.5 years. I hardly found anybody discussing about this. I think we should have a webinar on this, Ray, so that we can, at university, teachers here can have share their experiences and their ideas.
And I think you're right, Farah. And I think we should dive deeper in this. And I want to work with you and I will want to work with Mr. Malik on this, because I think this is a conversation that need to be had. Online is not a fire extinguisher. And COVID, we treated online learning as if it was a fire extinguisher. Okay, this happened, so grab the fire extinguisher. Bad. Because I hear people say things like, "Oh, I can't wait to get back on the classroom, so we're going to put the fire extinguisher back in the closet." I think we're just going about it wrong. But again, that's a conversation for another time, and I think we need to work together in the building a conversation around that. All right, it's 9:15 now. We have already kind of gone over a little bit. I want to I do have one question. Actually, I'm going to reserve this question for another day. well, yeah, I'm going to ask it real quick, Dr. Booker, this for you. You talked about relationships, the importance of relationships. Where is the balance between relationships and academic outcomes? How do you balance that? Do you spend in a 50-minute class, do you spend 25 minutes building relationships and the other 25 minutes in your objectives? How do you balance this need to form relationships, but you have a tangible job to do? You have an objective on the board. How do you balance that?
I'm glad you asked. Great question. So here's the thing, there's no set time for it, but ideally what we do, we teach our teachers to spend about 10 minutes or so, give or take, around the relationship component every day. There's 3 things that we do. We come in and we do a temperature check every day, right? So whether that's some kind of graphic, we need to know how you're feeling. That might be a quick, fist to 5 on a scale of 1 to 5. We might use some kind of cute emojis. How are you feeling? Because if my class is all riled up, something happened a period before, something's going on in the neighborhood, then they're going to be off anyway. So I'd rather kind of get a gist, right? Same way we do when we get on meetings or trainings over in college. If I'm getting ready to present to somebody, a group, and we check in, everybody's feeling low motivated, I know I'm gonna have to have a little more high energy, or vice versa, right? So we do what we call the check-in. Then we do our social contract. So we review the social contract. We go back to the contract that we created together as a team, and we cover it. Okay, we've agreed to do these things. Everybody on board for the day? Anybody disagree or need to add something to the day? And then the third thing, we do a quick SEL question, social emotional learning question, proactive question around whatever may be going on, or just a generalized topic. How do you feel about this or that? And we kind of allow a few people to talk. And then once we get through that, we transition into the learning for the day. I find that taking that time up front allows less distractions later in the lesson. If I don't get kids that time to clear, have some voice, regroup, get together, get anything off their chest, is going to stop my instruction for the day, I'm going to probably have more lessons. So that's kind of how we balance it. Every now and then a teacher, if it's a hectic topic, something happened, or there's been something in the news that set kids off, it may go past 10 minutes, but that time is more valuable, because if you think about it, if the kids are off or having separate conversations or doing something different, you're still not getting that extra 30 minutes of instruction anyway, because you're going to be spending more time redirecting behavior. So I like to get it out in the front part of the lesson and kind of, have that understanding. Okay, now that we're done that, everybody's had some voice. The next set of minutes is for me to be able to instruct you. So hopefully that answers your question.
Great. And I think Yasmin just put something in the group. You want to say quickly, Yasmin, that you kind of just supported what Dr. Booker said?
Yes. What Dr. Booker was saying, it goes hand in hand with this program called the Responsive Classroom. And it tells almost exactly what she says, of a routine that you follow at the beginning of the day to get everyone's voices heard in the room and get ready to start the instructional part of the day. So it's a social emotional learning component that you do at the beginning of the day, and then you're ready to kick off your instruction.
Well, guys, I think this has been a productive, extremely productive conversation. I'm going to take full credit for inviting some very intelligent people to this conversation. I have one last question of Dr. Booker. And I think a lot of people they're going to perk their ears up for this question. Dr. Booker is a principal, and she hires teachers. So many teachers ask me, what are the possibilities for them possibly coming to America to teach in my APEA families? You might not know the answer to that question, but here's the 2 questions I have for you that may help my family members out. 1, what do you look for in a teacher? And 2, what value would a teacher who is not American or not native born American bring to an American classroom?
Great, thank you for that. Right now, we're dealing with a teacher shortage. I'm a recruiter for teachers for my district. So we travel all around to recruit teachers in the country and outside of the country. And in America, we just have a teacher shortage. We have less people going to school for education now than we did before. I recall 10, 15 years ago when I would get to convention centers, there'd be a line wrapped around the building of teachers that we were going to see. Now the line's getting shorter and shorter each year. So, the possibilities of transition are very great. I know in this past school year, I hired at least 5 teachers that came from other countries that came to our school to work. So the possibilities are there. Our schools are very diverse. So even though we're American schools, you might have a vast community of school teachers and students in your class. So at my school particularly, many of my students come from Central America. They come from different places. Many of them speak Spanish as their second language, as their first language, but it could vary. So there's a whole lot, culture, as our cultures grow, we're very acceptable of having as many people come on board, because we kind of turn into like a melting pot of, a little bit of everybody. And so the culture grows. And so you definitely will be welcomed at any of the American schools here. And you'd probably be surprised. One of my schools, I had a English learner school, and the majority of my schools spoke Nepalese. And so there are no Spanish speakers. They spoke Nepalese, or they were from Cameroon and spoke French or different things. So you'd be surprised where the students come from. So if it's something you're interested in, definitely reach out and, don't be shy. You definitely be welcome.
No, you didn't answer my first part of the question. What do you look for in a teacher?
Honestly, at this point, I look for belief systems, because once we hire you, people come in and they do the interview very well, but later we find out that they really don't believe in kids. They really don't believe kids can learn, or that all kids can learn. So I'm looking for people who really do believe that, all kids have an opportunity to learn, that they can do it, that, every kid deserves a chance. I can teach you classroom management, and I can teach you how to write a lesson plan, but I can't teach you a belief system, right? So if your belief system doesn't align to what it is that I need for my students, then it's probably not going to work out. I really need to know, like, what is your value? What was your education experience like, and why is it important to you? Because if we get it wrong and it's the other way, once I get you in, I can't change your belief system, right? You believe what you believe, your values are what they are. But if I can get a strong belief system and value, I can train you to do everything else. So I'm looking for a person who, really believes in children, believes, whether you're a poor kid or a rich kid, that you can learn, whether, you have 2 parents or 1 parent or an orphan, that you still deserve a chance. Those are the kind of things that we're looking for teachers.
All right, so I'm going to pull my friend card, my friend, long-term friend card on you. So would you commit to, as the recruiter, would you commit to possibly having a conversation with us in maybe a month of people who are truly interested in transitioning to America to teach, and give us some steps and some ideas of what they need to do to begin that transition, and possibly conduct interviews? I don't know how that works.
That's a big friend card, Ray. But what we can do is, we would be interested in doing some mock interviews with you. I will send Ray some links just for the application process, just so you can see what it consists of. It's not really hard. I had a teacher come from Puerto Rico and some other places, and they were like, we did it all on Indeed, right online. So everything's electronic now. Even most of the interviews are, across Zoom. So it's not as hectic as you would think, but I definitely would not mind doing some mock interviews with any of your teachers. I am transitioning out. This is my last year as principal. I'm going full time to my consulting business, but I'll still be working here in the district as well as globally. So yes, I would definitely be willing to support any of you the best way that I can.
All right, so make sure you put your website or your Instagram or whatever you want to share, so folks know about the services you provide. Thank you, Dr. Booker. On behalf of APEA, we appreciate your time, and we'll have a special gift for you shortly for taking your time to speak with us. Henna, are you there? No, no, Hannah, are you there? Is Renette there? Renette?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, as the former or as the last president, I want you to kind of send us off.
I'm so happy to see everybody here, and this was a very insightful meeting. I enjoyed it very much, and thank you, Ray, for giving me a chance and opportunity. I want to thank our guest speakers today. It was really nice to meet you all, and I'm sure these teachers are very excited also, and would love the opportunity to come to America and see how you are teaching on that side of the world. And thank you so much for today, all the guest speakers that we had and everybody that took part in this discussion and also attended this meeting. It was nice to have you all here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Renette. Thank you, Dr. Scott. Thank you, Dr. Booker. Yasmin, thank you for your contribution. Mr. Malik, hopefully we can continue our conversation. Farah, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. And we will see you next week. What chapters are we on? 8 and 9 now? What are those?
And 2, so me and Shiny.
So you guys will, Shiny and Renette will review chapters 2, and then we'll go from interactions and environment. Interactions and environment, chapters 8 and 9. All right, thank you. Look forward to the summer camp information, the teacher training workshop with Fort Hays State. Look forward to some mock interviews with Dr. Booker, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, APEA.